The night was quiet. Too quiet for a man who had once been used to laughter, music, and the warmth of family. Now, only the ticking clock on the wall reminded him that time was moving forward, even if his life seemed frozen in place. He was a single father, sitting alone in a small apartment that looked more tired than he did. It was his birthday, but there were no friends around, no phone calls coming in, no one waiting to surprise him. On the table in front of him was a tiny cake with only 2 candles. One was for him, and the other was for his little daughter who sat beside him, swinging her legs under the chair. He smiled at her, though it was a weak smile, the kind a man wears when he doesn't want his child to see his sadness. "Shall we blow the candles, kiddo?" he asked softly. She nodded eagerly, her eyes sparkling. To her, the cake was magic. To him, it was a reminder of everything he had lost. His wife was gone, taken too soon by illness, and all the dreams of a normal family life had vanished with her. Now his world was only his daughter, and he tried hard every day to make sure she never felt the emptiness he carried inside. They leaned in together and blew the candles. The smoke curled into the air like ghostly fingers, and he clapped lightly for his daughter, pretending it was all fun. She giggled, happy in her innocence. For a moment, the room almost felt warm, but then came the silence again, the silence that always followed laughter in this small apartment. He cut the cake, giving her the bigger piece, as always. He watched her eat, her cheeks puffed up like little balloons, and he chuckled quietly. It was not the birthday he dreamed of, but it was something. Maybe it was enough. At least that's what he told himself. But then, a sound broke the stillness. Knock, knock. The father froze, the knife still in his hand. It was late, far too late for visitors. He wasn't expecting anyone. The building was quiet. The neighbors kept to themselves. For a long moment he thought he had imagined it. But then, knock, knock, knock harder this time, urgent, almost desperate. His daughter looked at him, her eyes wide. "Daddy, someone's at the door." He stood up slowly, his heart already beating faster. Who could it be? His mind raced with uneasy thoughts. Was it trouble, a thief, or maybe just a drunk neighbor? He told his daughter to stay put and walked carefully to the door. His hand hovered over the doorknob as the knocking came again, louder, like fists pounding in panic. He took a deep breath and pulled the door open. There, standing in the dim light of the hallway, was a figure that did not belong to this world. It was a woman, or at least she looked like one at first glance. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost silver under the light. Her hair fell in long strands that seemed to glow faintly, as if catching light from somewhere unseen. But what caught his attention most was her eyes, large, glowing, and filled with both fear and hope. In her arms she held something small, fragile. At first he thought it was a baby wrapped in cloth, but when the little head shifted, he realized it was not human at all. The child had strange markings on its skin, faint patterns that pulsed like light. Its chest rose and fell quickly, and it let out a weak, shivering sound. The woman looked at him, trembling, and her lips moved. "Please," she whispered in a voice that was soft but filled with urgency. "Help us." The father stood frozen, his mind unable to process what he was seeing. An alien right at his door, not from a movie, not from a dream, but standing here in reality, on the very night he had given up on expecting anything new in his life. His first instinct was fear. His second was disbelief. But then, when he looked at the child in her arms, small and sickly, something inside him shifted. He knew that look. He had seen it when his own daughter was sick, when he had stayed up nights holding her close, praying she would survive. He knew the desperate face of a parent who feared losing their child. The alien mother swayed on her feet, almost falling. He reached out instinctively, catching her before she hit the floor. She was cold to the touch, weak, exhausted. "Who are you?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Her glowing eyes met his, and for a moment he felt like she was speaking not just to his ears, but to his very soul. "I have no place else to go," she said, barely holding herself together. "If they find us here, we are finished." His daughter peeked from the table, her small voice breaking the heavy silence. "Daddy, is she a princess?" The father swallowed hard. He didn't have an answer. He didn't even know what kind of danger had just stepped into his life. All he knew was that it was his birthday night, and instead of celebrating, he now faced a choice that could change everything. He looked at the alien mother, at the child clinging weakly to her chest, and at his own little girl watching from the table. His heart pounded with fear, but also with something else, something that felt a lot like destiny, and in that moment he realized his lonely birthday was over. His real story had just begun. The door closed behind them with a soft click, but to the father it sounded like a thunderclap. His heart raced as he guided the strange woman inside. She clutched her child tightly, her breathing shallow, her body trembling like a leaf in the wind. The small living room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier, as if the weight of a secret too big for the world had just entered his home. He helped her sit down on the couch, though she almost slipped off in exhaustion. His daughter crept closer, wide-eyed, staring at the alien mother and her child with innocent curiosity. The father grabbed a blanket from the chair and placed it over the stranger's shoulders. Her skin was colder than ice, and he could feel her weakness through the fabric. The alien child coughed, a soft, broken sound that made the father's chest tighten. He leaned closer, worried. The markings on the child's skin pulsed faintly, like dying embers in the dark. It was sick, too sick to move much, and every rise and fall of its chest looked like a battle. "Please," the alien mother whispered, her voice shaking. "Food, water, anything, my child." Her eyes glistened, and she pressed her face against the small head resting on her shoulder. Without thinking, the father moved quickly. He had a few leftovers from the small birthday meal, and though it wasn't much, he brought what he could. Bread, some soup he had kept warm on the stove, and a glass of water. He placed it carefully in front of her. The alien woman hesitated, looking at the food as if she wasn't sure it was safe. But her hunger overcame her doubt. She ate quickly, tears rolling down her cheeks as she broke pieces of bread and placed them gently against her child's lips. The child drank tiny sips of water, each one a struggle. The father sat opposite her, watching silently. He didn't know what to say. His birthday night had turned into something he could never explain to anyone. Part of him wanted to ask questions, where she came from, why she was here, who was chasing her. But the other part of him saw only the desperation of a mother trying to save her child. That part of him, the human part, knew what he had to do: protect them. His daughter climbed onto his lap, whispering, "Daddy, are they like us?" He looked at her innocent face, then at the alien woman's glowing eyes. "They're different," he said softly. "But they're people too." The alien mother's gaze snapped to him, as if those words meant more to her than he could imagine. "Thank you," she said in a shaky voice. "Many do not think so." The father leaned forward. "Who are you running from?" Her body stiffened. Her fingers tightened around her child. For a moment he thought she wouldn't answer. Then she whispered, "Hunters. They want us dead. If they find us here, you will be in danger too." The father's stomach twisted. Hunters. He imagined strange beings roaming the streets, searching for this fragile woman and her child. He thought of his own daughter, safe now, but for how long if danger was circling outside? His instinct screamed at him to send the strangers away, to lock the door and pretend none of this had ever happened. But when he looked at the child in the woman's arms, feverish and fragile, he knew he couldn't. The alien mother swayed, her head drooping. She was exhausted, her strength nearly gone. The father stood and gestured for her to follow. "Come with me. You can't stay out in the open. I'll take you somewhere safer." He led them down a narrow hallway to the basement door. It creaked as he opened it, revealing the cool, shadowy space below. It wasn't much, just boxes, old furniture, and the faint smell of dust, but it was hidden. If anyone came knocking again, they wouldn't find her down here. The alien mother hesitated at the top of the stairs. Her glowing eyes searched his face as though she was trying to decide if he could be trusted. Finally, with a small nod, she carried her child down the steps. The father followed, his daughter clutching his hand tightly. He set up a small bed from old blankets in the corner. The alien mother laid her child down gently, brushing its glowing skin with trembling fingers. She sat beside it, shoulders hunched as though she had carried the weight of an entire world and could no longer stand tall. The father crouched nearby. "Rest," he said. "I'll keep watch." She looked at him with eyes full of something he couldn't name: fear, gratitude, and maybe even disbelief. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why would you help me? You don't know me." He thought of his daughter upstairs, sleeping peacefully in her little bed. He thought of the nights he had held her close when she was sick, afraid of losing her. He thought of his wife, gone forever, and the loneliness that had settled into his bones. Then he looked at this alien mother, clinging desperately to her sick child, and he saw himself reflected in her pain. "Because no parent should face this alone," he said quietly. For a long time she said nothing. Then, with tears shimmering in her eyes, she whispered, "If they find us here, they won't spare you. You must be careful." The father nodded, though inside he felt the rising tide of fear. He knew danger was closer than ever. He could almost feel it outside, circling in the dark. Upstairs, through the small basement window, headlights passed slowly along the street. Shadows moved against the curtains. A vehicle paused, engines humming low like predators waiting. The father's breath caught in his throat. He crouched lower, staring up at the light seeping in through the basement window. Someone was out there. Someone was looking. And the night was far from over. The night grew colder, and the silence outside was no longer comforting. It pressed against the walls of the small house, heavy and tense, like a storm waiting to break. The father sat near the basement window, his body stiff, his eyes locked on the shadows moving outside. The alien mother sat in the corner, cradling her sick child, whispering soft words in a language he could not understand. The sounds were strange, but gentle, filled with the same love any mother would use to calm her child. The father's daughter had fallen asleep upstairs, but he kept her close in his mind. Every sound outside made him think of her. What if danger came crashing through the door? What if she woke to find soldiers in the house, guns pointed at her? His chest tightened. He had faced loneliness before, but tonight he was facing something else entirely. The unknown. Through the small window he saw beams of light sweeping across the street. Vehicles, black and heavy, rolled slowly by, their engines humming like growling beasts. Strange symbols glowed faintly on their sides, symbols he did not recognize. He leaned lower, pressing himself against the wall. The alien mother's glowing eyes followed his movement. "They are close," she whispered, her voice trembling. The father turned toward her. "Who are they?" he demanded softly. "Hunters," she said. The word itself seemed to shake her. "They will not stop until they find us. They can smell fear. They can see heat through walls." "We must stay quiet." The father's stomach nodded. Heat through walls? That meant hiding would not be enough. He looked at the child lying on the makeshift bed of blankets. Its chest rose and fell weakly, the glowing patterns on its skin flickering like fading light. If the hunters could track them, it was only a matter of time before they came knocking again. Then came the sound, footsteps on gravel. Heavy, sharp, right outside his front door. The father's pulse pounded in his ears. He motioned quickly for the alien mother to stay silent. She pulled the child closer, pressing her hand gently over its mouth to keep it from crying out. The father crept up the basement stairs, careful not to make them creak, and stopped at the door that led to the hallway. There it was again. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Whoever was out there wasn't just passing by. They were searching. The father's breath caught as a shadow crossed the curtains in the living room. A long, distorted silhouette stretched across the floor. Then came another. And another. 3 of them. His hand tightened on the doorknob, though he didn't know what he would do if they came in. He had no weapon, no plan, nothing but his determination to protect the 2 families now under his roof. Then, knock. It wasn't gentle. It was hard, commanding, the kind of knock that demanded obedience. "Open the door," a deep voice growled, not in English, but in something strange and harsh. The sound made the father's skin crawl. He froze. Should he answer? Pretend nothing was wrong? If he stayed quiet, would they break the door down? The knock came again, louder. The front door rattled under the force. "We know you are inside," the voice barked. The father's heart raced. He couldn't let them in, but he couldn't ignore them either. Slowly, he opened the hallway door and stepped into the living room. His legs felt heavy, but he forced himself to the front door. Through the curtain he saw them. 3 figures in dark armor, faces hidden behind masks that glowed faintly in the night. Their eyes, or what looked like eyes, shimmered like cold glass. They weren't human. He knew it instantly. "Open," one of them ordered again. The father swallowed hard. His voice trembled, but he forced the words out. "There's no one here. Just me and my little girl, please. Leave us alone." For a long, terrible moment there was silence. He could hear his own heartbeat, loud and desperate. Then one of the figures leaned closer to the door, sniffing the air like an animal. The father stepped back, his chest tightening. What if they could smell the alien mother downstairs? What if they could hear the faint breaths of her sick child? Finally, after what felt like hours, the footsteps moved away. The shadow lifted from the curtain. Engines started, and the low hum of the strange vehicles rolled back down the street. The father stayed frozen, his hand still gripping the doorknob, until the night grew quiet again. Only then did he exhale, his whole body shaking with relief. He went back downstairs. The alien mother was still holding her child tightly, her glowing eyes full of fear. When she saw him return, she whispered, "They will come back. They always come back." The father sat heavily against the wall, running a hand down his face. He knew she was right. This was only the beginning. His daughter stirred upstairs, her small voice calling out, "Daddy?" He closed his eyes. How could he explain any of this to her? How could he protect her from something he didn't even understand? The alien child coughed again, weak and fragile. The mother rocked it gently, singing in her strange language, her voice trembling with both love and terror. The father looked at them, then at the basement window where shadows had just passed. He realized with a heavy heart that he had crossed a line. There was no going back now. By opening his door, he had entered a world far bigger, far darker than his own. And though he wanted nothing more than to keep his daughter safe, he could feel it in his bones. Danger was coming, and it would not stop until it found them. The house was quiet again, but the quiet no longer felt safe. It was the silence of a battlefield after the enemy had passed, temporary, fragile, ready to break at the slightest sound. The father sat at the edge of the basement, his hands pressed against his face. His mind spun with questions that had no answers. Who were these hunters? Why did they want the alien woman and her child? And why had destiny placed them at his door on the very night he had longed for peace? Behind him, the alien mother watched. Her glowing eyes followed his every move as though she was waiting for him to make a decision, one that could either save her or destroy them all. Her child lay curled under the blanket, chest rising and falling in weak, shallow breaths. The markings on its skin flickered faintly, like stars about to go out. The father's daughter had woken, rubbing her sleepy eyes, clutching her stuffed toy as she crept down the stairs. "Daddy, and are they gone?" she asked, her voice soft. He scooped her up into his arms, holding her close. "Yes, sweetheart. For now." The alien woman's gaze softened as she watched him hold his daughter. It was a look filled with longing, as though she wished her child could be strong and safe like his little girl. For a long time, none of them spoke. The basement felt heavy with secrets, and the father knew he couldn't stay silent any longer. He turned to the alien mother. "You need to tell me the truth. Who are you? What do they want with you?" Her lips trembled. She pressed her child closer, then finally whispered, "We were meant to be safe. But my child is different, special. The hunters know it. If they take him, they will use him. They will break him. And if they succeed, your world will not be safe either." The father frowned. "Different how?" Slowly, with trembling hands, she pulled a small pendant from around her neck. It glowed faintly the same way her child's markings did. When she placed it on the child's chest, the light grew brighter. The patterns on the child's skin pulsed in rhythm with the pendant, alive, almost like a heartbeat. "This," she whispered, "is not just a child. He carries within him a gift my people fear and others would kill for. He can change things, heal things, even worlds. That is why they hunt us, to control him. To control everything." The father stared at the pendant, his throat dry. He didn't understand all of it, but he understood enough. This wasn't just about one mother and her child. This was something bigger, something dangerous. His daughter, innocent as ever, leaned forward, eyes wide. "He's glowing," she whispered. "Like a star," the alien mother smiled weakly. "Yes, a star that must not be taken." The father stood, pacing the room. His mind was at war. On one side was fear. Fear for his daughter, fear for the danger now circling his home like wolves. On the other side was something deeper. The image of this mother, desperate and weak, clinging to her child the same way he once clung to his own when sickness threatened to take her. "What if I can't protect you?" he said, his voice low, almost to himself. "What if helping you puts her," he glanced at his daughter, "in danger?" The alien woman lowered her head. "Then do what you must. Give us away if it means saving her. I would not blame you." The words cut him deeply. She was offering him an escape, a chance to step back, to let the hunters take their prize and walk away free. But when he looked at her, and then at the fragile child who barely clung to life, he knew he could not. He dropped to his knees beside her. No parent should have to choose between life and betrayal. I won't hand you over. Not as long as I'm breathing. Tears filled her glowing eyes. You will die for this. Maybe, he admitted. But if I do nothing, I'll lose more than my life. I'll lose the part of me that still believes in doing what's right. At that moment, the pendant in her hand flickered brighter. It cast strange patterns across the basement walls, shadows that seemed to dance. The alien mother looked at it in shock, then at him. It responds to you, she whispered. It never has before. The father frowned. What do you mean? The pendant only glows like this when it senses a protector. It has chosen you. He stepped back, shaking his head. No, I'm just a man. A father who can barely keep his own life together. But the glow grew stronger, wrapping the room in faint light. The alien mother bowed her head, whispering something in her language, a word that sounded heavy with meaning. The father didn't understand it, but he felt the weight of it. He felt the moment settle onto his shoulders like a burden he hadn't asked for. He wasn't just protecting strangers anymore. Somehow he had become part of something larger, something he could not yet see. Upstairs, the sound of engines hummed again. The father stiffened. The hunters had returned. He clenched his fists, staring at the glowing pendant, at the sick child, at the terrified mother, and at his own daughter, who held onto his sleeve. The choice had been made. He was in this fight now, whether he wanted it or not, and the night of shadows was only growing darker. The father's house stood in darkness, but the night outside was alive with movement. The low hum of engines rumbled like thunder in the distance, growing louder. Headlights swept across the street again, spilling pale light through the curtains. The father froze at the basement door, his ears sharp to every sound. They had returned. The alien mother held her child close, rocking gently, though her glowing eyes were wide with terror. The pendant at her neck pulsed faintly like a heartbeat, as if warning them of danger drawing nearer. The father whispered, "Stay quiet. Don't make a sound. Not even a breath." He crept up the basement stairs, his steps slow, careful not to let the old wood creak. His daughter sat at the top, clutching her stuffed toy, refusing to leave him. He kissed her forehead quickly and whispered, "Be brave. Stay behind me." Then the knock came. It wasn't a normal knock. It was heavy, pounding, shaking the door in its frame. The walls seemed to vibrate with the force. "Open this door," a voice barked. The words were strange, guttural but twisted enough that he understood their meaning. The father's heart pounded. He stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the front door as shadows moved across the curtains. He counted 3 figures, maybe 4. The same hunters. The knock came again, harder this time. "We know you are inside. Open now." His daughter's small hand tightened on his sleeve. Her eyes were wide, her lips trembling, but she didn't make a sound. He took a deep breath, forcing his shaking legs forward. With trembling fingers, he opened the lock and cracked the door just enough to meet their glowing eyes. The hunters stood on the porch, tall and armored, their faces hidden behind masks that gleamed faintly in the night. Their strange symbols glowed along their shoulders, marking them as something official or something dangerous. One of them leaned closer, sniffing the air. "You hide something," he growled. The father forced his voice steady. "There's nothing here. Just me and my little girl. We live quietly, please. You're scaring her." He motioned to his daughter, who peeked out from behind him, clutching her toy with wide, frightened eyes. The hunter stared at the child for a long moment, then back at him. "We sensed heat. 2 more bodies. Where are they?" The father's stomach turned. He felt the sweat on his back. His mind screamed for him to give up the truth, to save his daughter from whatever storm was building outside. But when he thought of the alien mother downstairs, her eyes begging him for help, and of the child struggling for life under the blanket, something inside him hardened. "There's no one here," he said firmly. "Search the house if you want, but you'll find nothing." The hunter tilted his head as though measuring his words. The silence stretched heavy, crushing. Then, without warning, one of them pushed the door wider and stepped inside. The father's heart leapt. He blocked the hallway with his body, praying they wouldn't notice the basement door. The hunter scanned the room, his strange mask glowing faintly, then leaned close. The smell of metal and ash clung to him, sharp and alien. Finally, he stepped back. "You lie well, human," he said coldly. "But remember this, If we return and find what you hide, there will be no mercy." With that, he turned. The others followed, their boots heavy on the porch. The engines roared again and the vehicles rolled slowly down the street, disappearing into the shadows. The father closed the door quickly, locking it tight. His knees nearly gave out, but he forced himself to stand tall. His daughter buried her face against him, trembling. He whispered, "It's okay. I've got you." But deep inside, he knew it wasn't okay. Not at all. He returned to the basement, his face pale. The alien mother rose to her feet, clutching her child. "You risked everything," she whispered. He shook his head. "They'll be back." They didn't believe me. The pendant around her neck glowed brighter now, casting a soft light across the basement walls. She lifted it, staring at it in shock. "It reacts to you again. Stronger this time. What does that mean?" The father asked. Her eyes glistened. "It means you are no longer just a protector. The pendant has chosen you fully. It sees your heart." The father frowned. "I don't want to be chosen. I just want my daughter safe." The alien mother stepped closer, her voice urgent. "But don't you see? If they sense the pendant's connection to you, they will not stop. They will hunt you too. You are part of this now." The weight of her words crushed him. He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't wanted any of it. All he had done was open the door, trying to help strangers. But now the choice had tied him to something larger than himself. The child stirred, coughing weakly. The glow in its skin flickered brighter for a moment, then dimmed again. The alien mother's face broke into quiet tears. She pressed her forehead against the child's, whispering in her strange language. The father looked at them, at the fragile child, at the desperate mother, at the pendant glowing in the dark, and then at his daughter, who clung to him with trust in her eyes. He knew then that his life was no longer his own. The secret was revealed. The pendant had chosen him, and now the hunters would never stop. The night was quiet once more, but for the father, silence had become the loudest threat of all. The night refused to end. Hours felt like days inside the father's small house. The hunters had left, but the silence that followed was not safety. It was the silence of predators waiting in the dark. The father paced the floor, his mind spinning. He knew they would return. He knew they would not give up until they found what they were searching for. Down in the basement, the alien mother sat quietly, rocking her child, her glowing eyes filled with worry. The pendant around her neck pulsed brighter than before, its light echoing the faint flicker of the child's skin. Every beat of that glow reminded the father that time was running out. At last, he stopped pacing. He could no longer sit still. "We can't stay here," he said firmly. "They'll come back. And next time they won't leave without tearing this house apart." The alien mother's head lifted slowly. She looked at him, fear and exhaustion in her eyes. "Where can we go?" she whispered. "They are everywhere." The father thought of the forest on the edge of town. It was miles of thick trees and shadows, far from the roads and lights. As a child, he had played there, running between the tall pines, hiding in the brush. If they could reach it, maybe they could disappear. Maybe the hunters wouldn't follow them into the wild. "The forest," he said at last. "If we move now, under the cover of darkness, we have a chance." The alien mother hesitated, clutching her child tightly. She was weak, almost too weak to stand. But when she looked at her child's face, so pale, so fragile, she nodded. "Then we go." The father's daughter, who had been listening silently, tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered, "will they chase us?" He crouched down, looking into her wide, fearful eyes. "Yes," he admitted softly, "but we'll stay together. And I won't let anyone hurt you. Do you believe me?" She nodded, clutching her stuffed toy with both hands. Her trust gave him strength he didn't know he still had. He gathered blankets to wrap the alien child, covering the glow of its markings. He found an old backpack, stuffing it with food, water, and a flashlight. Then, with his daughter at his side and the alien mother leaning on him for strength, they stepped quietly into the night. The air outside was sharp and cold. The street was empty, but the father felt eyes watching from the dark. They moved quickly, staying close to the shadows of buildings, avoiding the open road. Every sound made him flinch. The rustle of leaves, the creak of wood, the distant bark of a dog. Then came the hum, low, steady, growing louder. Engines. The hunters were near. "Run," the father whispered. They hurried down the street, slipping between alleys. Behind them, beams of light cut through the night, sweeping across walls and windows. Voices barked in that strange, guttural language. The hunters were searching, closing in. The father's heart pounded as they reached the edge of town. The trees loomed tall and dark, like guardians standing against the night. He led them into the forest, branches snapping underfoot, shadows swallowing them whole. But the hunters followed. The glow of their vehicles lit the forest edge, and strange drones buzzed overhead, beams of light piercing the canopy. "Keep moving," the father urged, pulling his daughter close, guiding the alien mother forward. She stumbled, nearly falling, but he caught her, refusing to let her collapse. The child in her arms stirred weakly, coughing, its glow flickering through the blanket. The beams of light swept closer. The buzzing grew louder. The hunters were only steps behind. The father's lungs burned, but he pushed forward, weaving between trees, forcing his legs to move faster. His daughter's breaths came quick and shallow, but she never let go of his hand. At last they stumbled into a small clearing. The moonlight spilled down like silver, and for a moment, the father thought they might have a chance, but then a shadow moved. Figures emerged from the trees. 3 hunters, their glowing masks cold and merciless. They had cut them off. The father stepped in front of the alien mother and their children, his chest heaving, his fists clenched. He had no weapon, no strength left, but he would not move. One of the hunters raised a strange device that glowed with crackling energy. "Give us the child," the voice growled. "Do this and we may spare you." The alien mother cried out, clutching her child tighter. "No." The father's daughter clung to his leg, her eyes wide with terror. "Daddy." The hunter stepped closer. The device crackled brighter. Then, without warning, the pendant around the alien mother's neck blazed with light. The glow spread across the clearing, washing over the trees, the ground, even the father himself. The hunters staggered back, shielding their masks from the sudden brilliance. The father felt it, the warmth, the energy flowing through him like fire and light. His fear melted into something else, resolve. He stepped forward, shielding both children, his body glowing faintly in the pendant's light. The hunters hissed, their voices sharp and angry. But they did not attack. They stepped back into the shadows, their glowing masks watching, waiting. At last, one of them spoke. "The protector has been chosen. This changes nothing. We will return." Then, as suddenly as they appeared, they vanished into the dark. The humming engines faded. The drones slipped back into the night sky. The clearing grew quiet again, the glow of the pendant fading until only the pale moonlight remained. The father sank to his knees, his arms trembling. His daughter hugged him tightly, tears on her cheeks. The alien mother knelt beside him, her glowing eyes shining with gratitude and fear. "You stood against them," she whispered, "even without a weapon." The father looked at her, his chest still heaving. "I'm not a soldier," he said. "I'm just a man trying to keep his family safe." She shook her head. "Not anymore." Tonight, the pendant revealed the truth. "You are more than that now. You are bound to us, and because of you, we still live." The father closed his eyes, holding his daughter close, listening to the fragile breaths of the alien child. He knew this was far from over. The hunters would return. The danger would grow. But for this moment, under the cold moonlight, they had escaped, and the real war was only beginning. Dawn crept slowly through the trees, painting the forest in pale shades of gold and silver. The father sat against a fallen log, his daughter curled in his lap, the alien mother resting nearby with her child cradled against her chest. They had survived the night, but survival felt fragile, like a candle flame trembling against the wind. His body ached, his mind raced, but his heart was steady. He had faced shadows, lies, and hunters who could tear him apart, yet somehow he was still here. He looked down at his daughter, her small hand still gripping his sleeve even in sleep. Protecting her had always been his only purpose. But now there was more. The alien mother stirred, her glowing eyes heavy with exhaustion. She looked at him with gratitude but also sorrow. "They will return," she whispered. "The hunters never stop," he nodded. "I know, but we can't keep running forever. There has to be a way to end this." Her fingers brushed the pendant, still faintly glowing against her chest. "There is, but the price is heavy." Before he could ask, the alien child let out a weak cry. The glow in its skin pulsed brighter for a moment, then dimmed again. The mother's face broke into quiet panic. She pressed her forehead to the child's, whispering words in her strange language. Tears glistened in her eyes. The father leaned closer. "What's happening?" He is fading, she said, her voice trembling. Without strength, he will not live. The father's chest tightened. He thought of nights when his own daughter was sick, when he stayed awake in fear, praying for her breath not to stop. He could not bear to watch another parent lose their child. Tell me what to do, he said. Anything. The alien mother looked at him for a long time, as if weighing his soul. At last, she placed the pendant in his hand. The moment it touched his skin, it burned warm, alive, almost as if it was breathing. This pendant chose you, she whispered. Not me, not even him, you. It sees in you what even you do not see. If you accept its bond, it will share your strength with my child. But once given, it cannot be undone. The father stared at the glowing crystal in his hand, his heart pounding. He thought of his daughter asleep against him. If he gave his strength away, would he still be able to protect her? Could he risk weakening himself when danger was still out there? He closed his eyes, the weight of choice pressing on him like a mountain. He remembered his lonely birthday, the small cake, the empty room. He remembered the knock on the door, the trembling mother begging for help. He remembered the hunters, their cold masks, their promise of no mercy. And then he remembered something else. His wife's last words, whispered from a hospital bed years ago. Promise me you'll keep our daughter safe. Promise me you'll live with a good heart. He opened his eyes, gripping the pendant tightly. If this saves him, then take it. Whatever it costs. The alien mother's tears fell freely now. She placed her hands over his, guiding the pendant to the child's chest. The glow flared, blinding for a moment, filling the clearing with pure light. The father gasped as he felt something inside him shift, like a river pouring out of him into the fragile body before him. His strength, his will, his very soul, shared. When the light faded, the forest was quiet again. The child's breathing grew steady. The glow in its skin no longer flickered weakly but pulsed strong, alive. The alien mother sobbed, clutching her child tightly. You gave him life, she whispered. You gave us both a future. The father sank back, exhausted but strangely at peace. His daughter stirred in his lap, blinking awake. She looked at the alien child, now glowing with gentle light, and smiled. Daddy, he looks happy. The alien mother bowed deeply before the father. Your kindness will not be forgotten. My people will know your name. You saved more than us. You saved what could one day save worlds. Before he could reply, a sound filled the sky. A deep hum, louder than before, but different. Not the hunters. Not the cold engines of war. He looked up to see ships descending, sleek and silver, glowing in the morning light. They moved with grace, not menace. The alien mother gasped, her eyes wide. My people. They found us. The ships landed in the clearing, their doors opening. Figures emerged. Tall, elegant. Their eyes glowing like hers, but dressed in robes instead of armor. They approached slowly, their faces filled with awe as they saw the child alive, the pendant glowing and the human standing beside them. One stepped forward, bowing to the father. You have done what even we could not. You are not just protector, you are family now. The father's daughter squeezed his hand. Daddy, are we heroes? He smiled softly, pulling her close. No, sweetheart. We just did what was right. But deep down he knew the truth. A lonely birthday night had become the moment that changed everything. A simple act of kindness had shaken the hunters, united strangers, and forged a bond that crossed worlds. As the alien mother and child were lifted aboard the ship, she looked back at him, her glowing eyes full of promise. This is not the end, she said. One day we will return, and when we do, the galaxy will remember you. The father watched as the ships rose into the sky, vanishing into the morning light. His daughter leaned against him, safe in his arms. And though he was still just a man, just a father trying to keep his child safe, he knew his life would never again be ordinary. Because on the night he thought he was most alone, he had found something greater, purpose, hope, and a story that would echo across the stars.